What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Neptune Sunday.
You're
Your boy V Moss here with the homie Vogue, taking it in a different direction this episode. Vogue, what we got today?
I'm super excited. Today we're gonna talk about, over the course of the Neptunes career, they've worked with a lot of pop people. I think doing the research for this episode and like listening to the songs again, I had a lot of realizations about how important that was. But we just wanted to talk about the Neptunes and pop origins, the origins of their work, and also a theme I found I like to call the neutrality of the Neptunes. There are three major people that they work with, amongst others, but I think a lot of people think of it as just Justin, right? They did the Justified album, but like he had really good working relationships with Britney Spears and Gwen Stefani established around the same time. And I'd say, you can tell me if you disagree, I'd say like those three, they really shaped a lot of pop at that time. And I know you have some exposure to pop just from like, I know you through your cousin, me and your cousin used to go to school together, listen to music together. And so like, I'm sure you know what that pop sound sounded like.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I even heard Britney Spears, I think, was at Rachel and Janine's house. I remember a very specific episode, a moment, a visit, and me coming up here to visit them, and we were just chilling. That's what we used to always do. I'd come up here and we'd just be watching music videos all day. Yeah. And I remember the Hit Me Baby One More Time video came on, and I guess I was in like 6th or 7th grade. And I said something crazy, like something I said about how is she saying "Hit Me Baby One More Time" and she's like high school, and I said a cuss word or something. Like, what the hell, or something. I don't know what I said, but at the time Rachel's a year younger than me. And there were one of the adults was in the room, and she was like, oh, like I was about to get in trouble if I said a cuss word. But luckily no one heard me say it. But yeah, so I definitely appreciate how Rachel and Janine, both their varied music tastes influenced me and all the time that I spent with them. So shout out to them. Shout out to my cousins, my sisters, Rachel and Janine. Love y'all.
I love them too. I actually didn't realize, but I used to bring playlists to their house every time I would come visit. But the reason why I brought up how important Britney and Gwen and Justin are to the 2000s is just that, like, listening to music now, I didn't realize how uncommon it was for rap and R&B artists to collaborate with pop artists. Cross-genre collaboration in the way that it exists now wasn't a thing. So when you had somebody from two different genres working together, that was crazy back then. And I'll tell a little story about Nelly when we get to that song. But our first song that we're going to talk about today is NSYNC's Girlfriend. It was released in 2002, and there's a remix with Nelly that serves as a single.
So I think, to your point, like that was the first time that I'd heard anything like that, where it's a traditionally pop artist where someone, and we got to remember at the time where that remix came out, that Nelly was on fire. Like, Nelly was everywhere. I think that's probably right around Nellyville time. So
yeah,
not necessarily, he's getting a little bit more mainstream attention. So the collaboration and the crossover made sense, but it was a big deal.
Yeah. So what I found out when I went back to learn about the release, they were going to release the song, release the video like 2 weeks before, and they did a remix with Nelly. And Nelly's team actually, they weren't down for it. They were like, you're trying to ruin his image, yada, yada, yada. And Nelly wanted to be on the song. So he insisted that it happened. And that was his first pop collaboration. And I feel like we wouldn't have a Sweat and Suit if it wasn't for songs like this. So I thought that was really cool. And this nigga was talking about street sweepers. So
that's pretty interesting to hear. It's pretty interesting to hear that his team didn't want him to do a song with NSYNC, and then they let him do a song with Tim McGraw.
Right.
So yeah, okay.
Nelly paved the way.
We'll take it, man. But while we're talking about NSYNC, we got to show love to the homie JC Chasez, from the DMV, Bowie, Maryland's own. You know, I'm not like by no means was I a huge NSYNC fan, but I think he was just like I think it's safe to say he might have been just as talented as Justin. But I mean,
don't get me started. I go on a rant once a year about JC Chasez being the backbone of NSYNC, and he does not get his due. He was on America's Next Best Dance crew for years. He held it down, and what did they do? They disrespected our king and picked up Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I just remember seeing that Mickey Mouse Club video with him and Justin and Ryan Gosling. I'm just like,
so good.
What? But yeah, overall, though, I think, just the collaboration between NSYNC and Neptunes on that song, and then even the Nelly feature on the remix too, just was a very, very, whether it was intentional or not, seamless transition for us to go from, okay, the NSYNC run is dying down and we're moving into this Justin era, and this is a perfect bridge for that.
Absolutely. You want to get into our next song?
Let's do it.
So the next song we're going to talk about, iconic, Britney Spears, I'm a Slave for You. That was in 2001, so a little bit before Girlfriend, so she did it first. It was a really mature song for Britney at the time. Britney, she came from Hit Me Baby One More Time, which is a high schooler singing about like God knows what. But I think that she was doing a lot of work to kind of like declare her independence, like think Janet's Control album, and I found out that the song actually was written for Janet, or they offered it to Janet first for her All For You album.
That makes sense, for sure.
Yeah. And I can obviously like the way that it's crafted, you can hear Janet's voice on it. But it actually didn't perform that well commercially, like not here. In other countries it hit like the top 10 like crazy, but here it was kind of low. I want to say it was like in the 20s or something, which, Britney goes number one no matter what. So her taking on this more mature urban sound, they weren't messing with it.
And so we've mentioned, I think we mentioned Philly's Most Wanted before. I think there will be a Philly's Most Wanted episode coming soon, but we got to bring up how all the people who pay attention and are fans of the Neptunes will say how there's a comparison or a very high level of similarity between I'm a Slave for You and one of Philly's Most Wanted's most important songs. It is Please Don't Mind. I mean, I hear the similarities, but I think I don't think it's different enough for me that it's like it's clearly two different songs.
It's clearly two different songs. Like I actually, when I was thinking it in my head to myself, I heard it more than when I heard the song back. I think they're just picking up some of the signature Neptune sounds, and like those don't go away. So it makes the song sound similar. Like, okay.
That's just like, you could say a few Neptune songs sound the same, but I don't know. I think that's just for those people who are not trained Neptunes connoisseurs like us who can't hear the difference. We also got to mention about this song, like when she performed that at the MTV Video Music Awards, and I guess that was 2001 or 2, maybe, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But that was a big deal too. That was her making a statement. Like you said earlier, the song goes with her turning this page from being the high school sweetheart to being a more mature artist.
Absolutely. That's arguably MTV's most iconic VMA performance. Like, you can only name about 5. And the other one I think of is the Madonna, Britney, Christina Kiss, and I couldn't tell you what song was on.
Right. I have no idea what song that was either. But I do vividly remember that Britney walking around in a swimsuit tie outfit and a big snake. And
exactly.
That's another Britney song I want to mention too. One of actually my favorites is so there's the song Boys, but then there's the Boys remix, which I really like because it takes the second verse of Boys and it puts Pharrell in it to do that second verse, so they call it the co-ed remix. So for those of you who don't know, that song is actually on the Austin Powers Goldmember soundtrack. And so for me,
it was on a soundtrack.
part of the reason why it stuck out is there's a moment in the video where Mike Myers, Austin Powers, is at the bar while pharrell is rapping, and they do this really cool Star Trek hand dap where they like slide. They both do the Star Trek sign and like slide their hands together. And I don't know what it was, maybe because I'm just like, again, we're doing this podcast because I'm a super fan, but that just was a big moment. It was cool. And me and my god brother Dave, shout out to D Magic, we used to do that all the time, just randomly when we were out in public or probably a little bit under the influence, and we were trying to show that we had a secret cool handshake. But yeah, also to mention from this soundtrack, this was not the only Neptunes song on the soundtrack. The other song by the Neptunes that was on the soundtrack was Work It Out, featuring the female co-star of the movie. This woman, you might have heard of her. Her name is Beyonce.
Beyonce, we love you, girl. Funny story about me, I've never seen any of the Austin Powers movies, and people have been trying to get me to watch them for years, and this is the one conversation I've had that will make me go watch those movies now.
I mean, they're all really silly.
I think I've seen the first one, maybe.
I think the first one's really good. It lays the foundation. This Goldmember, I think, is the third one, and I think it's probably the weakest one, but it's still funny. And,
I mean, I know all the words to Work It Out, so
right.
I've bought in.
All right, what's next on the list?
Hella Good. This is a No Doubt song that we actually talked about in our last episode, I believe. But, you know, it was a song that had the ska and punk and like the cosmic Neptune sounds that we were talking about in those. Just, it was fun Neptune spin on rap and tied up with Gwen Stefani's writing, which they're really known for. If you are a No Doubt fan, they got huge praise for their writing on Tragic Kingdom. So I love that song. I loved that album. And as we mentioned before, I'm pretty sure that's what influenced, that may be among the things that influenced Chad and Pharrell to go back in and do the live instrumentation on In Search Of.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about No Doubt a couple times, and I don't think I've ever mentioned, like, I maybe because of Rachel had Tragic Kingdom, the album, and loved it probably more than people would expect me to. Spiderwebs was the jam back in whatever year that was as a kid.
Yes.
But yeah, I do remember this coming out, and because of that history and knowing No Doubt and hearing, like, knowing that they had this collaboration with Neptunes, I remember that song and loving it. I think, like we said before, is definitely a clear connection to that song and that sound that we get for the re-release version of In Search Of.
Mm-hmm.
All right, our next song is by the Backstreet Boys. It's the Call remix.
I actually kind of fuck with this song. I don't really like the Backstreet Boys, but this was the one that I enjoyed naturally.
Like I think I've mentioned before too, is, you know, I have at a couple different times in my life spent time just getting as many songs as possible of the Neptunes as I discover them and making sure that I can compile them, right? So I think 2003, 2004, when I first found, I guess, the first list on the internet of the production discography of the Neptunes, just was on LimeWire or whatever, downloading as many of them as I could. And when I saw this, I was like, what? I remember this song coming out, the original version, and to find out that there's a Neptune remix was a big deal. But then also the fact that it's got the Clipse on it.
Right.
So it's got a big time, a very strong feature from the Clipse. Pusha opens up the remix and Malice gives another solid verse. But yeah, this is another case, like, and it's the case with a lot of songs I have in my music library where I only have that song because it is produced by Neptunes, because I am not a huge Backstreet Boys fan. And so, but I do love the remix to this. The Clipse killed it. And also important to mention, so for those of you who listen to Our In My Mind anniversary episode, we talked a little bit about how at the time the Neptunes had just got put on the list for Billboard's top producers of the century, and they were number 2 to Max Martin. And the funny tidbit is Max Martin actually produced the original version of the song.
That's crazy to me.
Shout out to who we claimed we never heard any of his music before, but we've heard plenty of it.
I knew we had heard it. We just didn't hear his name, but now we know. We apologize. If you ever get a call from us, please pick up, Max. But I did want to say, like, it's throughout the songs we've talked about, but this is another example of like the neutrality of the Neptunes. We talk a lot when we talk about the Neptunes working with, high profile rappers who like are able to change their image by working with the Neptunes. It's kind of like neutral center of just like love and aliens and all of that they can filter their work through. And I feel like that's also happening on the other side, because you would never see Backstreet Boys working with the Clipse, like the Clipse. Right. Why would they do that? That's not their fan base. And it's also like pumping up the cross-genre collaborations that like now are prevalent. They're pairing like the weirdest people together, but it's making hits. And I just like something about the Neptunes, they just provide this like safe space to explore and be that I really appreciate.
Right. And I wonder, to your point about the unique pairing of the Clipse and the Backstreet Boys, I wonder if that's why that song, I'm sure it's label drama, but one, the remix is not available as a song on streaming. It's only the video. And also it's not available with the rap on it. So when you get the playlist, folks, we'll try to do our best to get that song on there. If not, it's on YouTube, go check it out. But yeah, I think it's a dope remix. The song itself is weird, I think the song is weird. But like I said, when I first heard this, when I first downloaded it, the first voice you hear on the remix version with the rap is Push's. So to me, it's basically a Clipse song.
I'm with you.
All right, so now we're about to get into a very, 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 very important part of this conversation. We're talking about pop collaborations with the Neptunes. It doesn't begin with this guy, it kind of does, but let's get into it. Let's talk about Justified.
All right, y'all couldn't see me, but I was stretching because I need to get ready to talk about this album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time. Should be one of yours if you're listening to this podcast. The Justified album came out in summer 2002, and the Neptunes produced, I knew it was a lot, but I never counted before today. They produced 7 out of 13 songs on that album. That's a Neptunes album.
Basically. But then there's four from Timbo. So
right.
Hey, you guys know I'm from Richmond, Virginia. So come to Virginia if you need hits. That's where it is. It's the name of the game, man. So
don't hit them with the come to death row. But like, that's crazy. And I actually remember, like, it was just so important to me as an album. Like, another album I would say, like, shaped my musical taste and all that. But like, I also vividly remember, and I found the clip on YouTube, and I'll find some way to like make show notes and drop these links in there. But I remember Justin doing an interview where he said, I'm not an R&B artist, I'm a pop artist. Because he did this album with, these typically R&B and hip hop producers. And I guess people just assume like he made a R&B album. And me and Justin are on the rocks, but I don't know what's going on with your boy. He was just like, no, I'm not an R&B artist. He wanted to make sure that he was established like in this world of pop and he could bring that sound into there.
Right.
Well, like that was the thing. Black people were kind of mad.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, I feel like has been clear that he's inspired by those people in the R&B and categories, but he just can't escape the fact that you're Justin Timberlake, man. Yeah. And so this is completely off the rails. This is not in our notes, guys. So hopefully we don't get too sidetracked. But speaking of Justin's, we're talking in this moment the day after Justin Bieber just released a remix on the song of the year, Essence by Wizkid. And I think there's some similarities there. I mean, other than their names being Justin, but like
I see it.
I mean, I like I have no hate towards Justin Bieber. There's some Justin Bieber stuff that I really like. He's grown.
Bugatti Beats.
He's grown a lot as an artist. But I'm thinking about we're going completely off the rails. But I just don't understand who thought that was necessary, right? Like it's not bad, but I'm just like did we ask for who asked for it? Like that's what who asked for it? You know, does Wizkid feel like he needs it? No, that song is everywhere, no matter what. So, but that's a similar type of conversation that you have with Justin in terms of you know, but at the end of the day, the music is great.
The music's great.
So you got to give credit to where credit is due. So whatever you wanted to do, the music is great. It is what it is.
I want to give you credit because you brought that back on home to the main point of this conversation. And you know what? Bugatti Beeps really can't do a lot of wrong with me. So.
Right. I got a lot of love for Bieber. One of our homies from Hampton is in Bieber's music crew. DJ Tay James he's actually frat brothers with Justin, my friend Justin Timberlake. But shout out to Tay. You're doing your thing, bro. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, the Bieber remix is not bad. Like it's just a matter of like that song is really old too. Like I mean, it just seems like to me the timing was weird, but whatever, it's great.
The music industry is a strange place. Back to Justified.
The part of it that makes everything so complicated is the industry part of it. Yeah. Like if it's just about the music, you just let it happen like organically, and people are gonna like it because it's art.
Right. Which I mean, I think it makes it so interesting when we are talking about these specific songs because like every one of the songs on this list for the most part have like a whole backstory of like why it was controversial or why it was the first time they ever did it or why like this and that or how it landed with their separate fan bases. And to us, like I know to me in the moment, I was like, this music is fire. I'm just really excited about this music. Right. I would have never really known until I like started to dig deeper into this music that there was like this whole history.
Yeah, and like I Love You was so strong.
Right.
It was a very, even coming from the Girlfriend song, it was still very different. It's the juxtaposition of the acoustic intro riff, but then getting into the Neptunes traditional sound. I mean, there's a documentary on YouTube I watched a little bit that I guess during that whole process, Timberlake had one of his boys from home just follow them around with a video camera the whole time that they spent recording the album. And he said as soon as he walked in and he heard that acoustic guitar intro, he knew that Pharrell and Chad had the answers to everything that he wanted to do with the album.
Wow.
So that shows.
Yeah.
Wow. Got to mention Like I Love You Too has got Clipse verses on it as well, which I think is just when you combine this with the Backstreet Boys remix, combine that with obviously stuff that they did with Khalees that had Push and Mouse on it. 702's I'm a Star was out around the same time. So they were intentionally doing this. Let's put these guys on a couple of these R&B pop tracks to get their buzz up. Yeah. And the next thing you know, they're performing Like I Love You at the VMAs and Push is wearing an I'm Your Pusha T and Mouse has on a Patty Cake Man tee. And I'm like, wow, Virginia, we made it. We made it, bro.
I actually cannot wait until we do like a purely Clipse episode.
Oh my goodness.
That's gonna be crazy.
Oh my goodness. So other Neptune songs on the album, like we talked about, like Vogue said, there's 7. So Like I Love You, Last Night, Nothing Else, Take It From Here, Take a Ride. Is that one of them too?
Yeah. Ooh, no, don't misquote.
But 4th single, Senorita, I think was like the fact that they got to a 4th single and it was Senorita was strong. But overall, the biggest record is Rock Your Body. So to me, I think, like I said, Rock Your Body to me is the biggest record on the album. I think Pharrell in chat have talked about, how this album was inspired by the old, and you hear the influences of like Earth, Wind and Fire and Michael Jackson in that off the wall Thriller era.
Yep.
So P said on Drink Champs, here's our shot for our every episode Drink Champs mention, that some of these songs were written with Michael Jackson in mind. So to me, Rock Your Body is basically Pharrell trying to make his own version of Rock With You.
Very much so. Very much so. We have to mention that Vanessa Marquez did background vocals on the song, the Talk to Me Boy part. And she also had background vocals on the I'm Lovin' It McDonald's commercial.
Yeah, man. I mean, so I think we should, Vanessa Marquez, man, shout out to Vanessa Marquez. I think we need to do an unsung episode with her, talk about Tammy Lucas, talk about some of the other folks that are behind the scenes helping making some of these hits and some of this great music happen. Another random story. So when I Googled Vanessa Marquez, there apparently is an actress named Vanessa Marquez who was on an episode of Seinfeld and had a recurring role on ER and was like killed by the police or something crazy like that.
What?
And when I first saw it, I was like, there's no way this is the same person. And then I read it more and I was like, okay, cool. It's not the same person, but she died? What? The police killed her? That's another side note. Well, I don't know what's going on. Maybe because we're recording.
You could also call this podcast Vogue and Vaughn Discover the Joy of Google. Because
man, that blew my
so
mind.
much stuff about this music.
It blew my mind, the whole story of that. But anyway, so speaking of stories, the I'm Lovin' It McDonald's commercial is its own story within itself. The article I read was something like the contentious story of the I'm Lovin' It jingle or something like that, where it started with some ad agency like McDonald's was freaking out and they're like, we need something big. They had this whole competition with agencies competing for the right to make their next campaign. Goes to some agency in Germany. Germany's working with some music. The agency in Germany is working with some music house to kind of figure out what this is. And they come up with this I'm Lovin' It. They get JT to do the song, and it's basically created as a JT song, and the jingle is kind of secondary. And it was supposed to be on the second album, but then I guess it got leaked. But there's drama with that, but it was probably like McDonald's most successful slogan. Then all of a sudden in 2016, Pusha gets on Twitter and says that he came up with it, when really the German agency says, hey, we heard this in the studio when we first created it. And, the clips are actually on one of the commercials. So I don't know how that confusion of being featured in a commercial and actually coming up with the slogan. I still love Pusha to death, but at the end of the day, like the whole thing and it like having I'm Lovin' It just be its own single was it just is random. It doesn't exist on any album. It's just out there in the world. And yeah, I'm loving it.
That story just broke my brain. I didn't even know they were in the commercial. You would have told me that, I'd be like, oh, that's crazy.
Because the commercial I actually watched that had the clips on it, it looked like a foreign commercial. Like it didn't look like an American commercial. And you don't see them in it.
Yeah.
And it's also the beat that they're rapping over is not the Neptunes beat. It's a different track.
Huh.
So like the song, in my mind, the way I read it, and I could be completely wrong because I read most of it, but not all of it. But it seemed to me what happened was that they had the song written and they gave it to them. They use it for the jingle, and now it leaks. And now Timberlake is like, I want to use it, but I don't want to use that version. I'm going to get Pharrell to do it. And then they I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of moving pieces. McDonald's ended up being, I think I read something else about how because of that, McDonald's like sponsored Timberlake's tour or something like that. Like it just,
oh my God.
But that's a perfect example of how even so now more than ever, how personalities, right? Rappers, athletes, the endorsement game, and how you have this crossover appeal of the art being used for commercial use, and how valuable that is, because people love it because it's JT. So let's use JT to help sell some hamburgers and some French fries, and I guess it worked.
Again, you brought it back to our theme, the neutrality of the Neptunes. They are commercially appealing, worldwide loved. They're incredible. No one else can do that kind of stuff. And I know like Justin is like the face of that campaign, but like that doesn't come without like their beats and stuff.
Right.
We have a couple more songs on this list that we'll go through really quickly. Hollaback Girl, You Don't Live on Planet Earth if you don't know that song, came out in 2004, you know, when gentle cultural appropriation was still okay.
I remember how to spell bananas.
Everybody sings that song to themselves when they spell bananas now.
Right. Every time.
There's a sound in that song that I can't even tell you which one. Like, I feel like they use sounds that were really unique. Like there's like a tuba in there or something, a tuba or a trumpet. And it was just like a master class in like creating something really unique and special.
Yeah, it definitely has a lot of evidence of Pharrell and Chad going back to their marching brand roots.
Yeah.
And that's inspiring the video too. You hear it, like it's almost like it's got the stomp too of the dance team cheerleaders to go with the marching band instruments. But yeah, I thought one of the most iconic songs that they've done.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Gwen is a frequent collaborator. She had another album come back. She come 2 years later, Sweet Escape, and 3 songs on that album were produced by the Neptunes. My favorite was Wind It Up. I danced to that song drop of the episode. I danced to that song in college with my team. Shout out to Functions. Vaughn has a lot of people to shout out, and I don't have any friends. So shout out to Functions dance team at University of Maryland College Park, because that was my crew, and I had them dancing to mad Neptune songs.
Yeah, man, I remember Wind It Up is good. I think Yummy is probably more memorable for me out of those Sweet Escape songs. Something about wanna have a pajama part, have a party, don't bring pajamas or something like that. Anyway,
I remember that line.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when Gwen started to like veer in another route. Like she kind of went like pop starlet kind of route. So Sweet Escape was the big, like the title single was huge for that. And it was a very different sound than the Neptunes. Right. But we still got a couple songs which we're super appreciative of.
Yeah, Sweet Escape that's the big woohoo song with Akon, and it's got the other, I think is Luxurious. Is that it with Eve?
Yep.
Where
it's got
those Neptune songs fit the vibe of that album.
Yep. It's got that really cool, like, I can't even remember the name of the technique, but like that Cali sound that, you know, Gwen's from Cali and harkens back to like NWA. And the last song we have on this list, the Queen of Reinvention, who has kind of fallen out of favor with me, but Madonna, she had 5 songs on that album, and it came out in 2007. And this was the first time I think we saw her veer to like an R&B rap kind of space. She had done a lot of different genres, Spanish music, you know, veering into like dominatrices and all of that. But like, this was a different sound for her. How did you feel about that album?
Yeah, for sure. I think when first of all, again, if you want hit records, come to Virginia. This whole album is produced by Pharrell and Chad and Timberlake and Danger. So completely Virginia produced album. And, you know, I remember, I think, so the lead single for this was 4 Minutes, which is like crazy. It's clear that Madonna was intrigued by the sound after Justin dropped Future Sex Love Sounds. And so she was like, all right, cool. Like, let me go try to do this. And so she got a mixture of both his albums. So like you said, there's 5 songs on there. I think to me, my favorite one is Beat Goes On, because it's one of our, we talked about this before, one of our rare Pharrell and Kanye collabs. And this is when Kanye was in a crazy run. This is Graduation is out and is killing it. He's doing all his features. He's getting ready for a tour. So to have him pop out on a Madonna record produced by the Neptunes, throw Kanye on it, like at that moment, especially with that following up to the 4 Minutes record, helped to get this album a lot of steam and help it get a lot of play in a fan base that probably was never listening to Madonna before that.
Yeah.
And that includes me.
Sure. I was a big Madonna fan, but I was definitely excited to see her working with the Neptunes. I didn't think that was anything I was gonna get. So that was an exciting moment in time for me. I've got to be honest. Those songs didn't really land with me, which surprised even me. But I think maybe the level to which she was inspired by other people for me stood out. Like the sound on Future Sex Love Sounds was dope and on Justified, but I felt like for the first time I felt like it wasn't a reinvention. It was just like I'm doing the same thing everybody else is doing.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the other songs are not as strong as Beat Goes On. I think there's one, Spanish Lesson was kind of catchy, but it didn't really stick with me that much. There's another one like maybe Candy Shop. I don't know. There's a bunch of them, but they're good, but they're not like, I wouldn't put them on my favorite Neptune songs of all time.
Right.
Maybe Beat Goes On, because Beat Goes On is good. But yeah. So it's good, like overall, and this is, we approach this episode as it being similar to our very first episode in terms of an origins type approach to it. You know, there will be another version, another edition of this, a part of this pop episode where we get into some more recent stuff, where you start talking about the Ariana Grande and the Miley Cyrus. But then, you know, there's going to be another conversation about some Justin Timberlake music in that pop conversation. It's not going to be as positive. Just giving everyone a heads up. But yeah.
I second that emotion. So I'm excited, but shout out to the Mocha Grandes because I am an Ariana Grande stan.
Yeah, I'll save it for the episode. I'm not a fan, but
I think that, you know what, there's an important conversation to have, and I already know what it is. So you and I are eye to eye. Y'all will be eye to eye with us when we put that episode out.
All right, y'all. Well, we appreciate y'all listening. Definitely continue to like, share all the content, follow the SoundCloud. We're working on trying to get all this on Apple and Spotify podcasts soon. We'll keep you posted. But in the meantime, just hang out with us on SoundCloud. And yeah.
Before you close, I want to make a small amendment. I may have said I don't have any friends earlier in this episode. I have a lot of friends. I love you guys. I can't let any of you guys hear that and cuss me out in my text later. So shout out to all the friends of the podcast. We appreciate you guys listening so far. Tell a friend. We're having a good time. Come enjoy some music with us.
Yes. So we are like, hey, we made it to 5 episodes. It's crazy. That's really got to clap for ourselves, pat ourselves in the back. But not to get too ahead of ourselves, but I feel like we're just getting started. All right, everybody.
Leave it there. Bye.
Peace and love, yo. We'll talk to y'all later on Neptune Sunday. Peace out.
Hollaback.